This video is to demonstrate how to save a Rhino surface or solids model as a .slc file that will allow it to be rapid prototyped on a Solidscape wax printer. So, yeah. To begin the process, I'm actually going to save a version of my file that's for printing because I'm going to wind up rearranging my layers a little bit to be more efficient with my time. So, and it's always a good idea to save something before you're going to union it or export it as a different version in case you need to go back and model anything. And then the next thing I've done is I've gone into my layer box and I've turned off all of my construction lines so that the only thing that's left on are my solids layers and a few layers that I've created for the purpose of the exercise. So once I've got that set up, I'm going to go ahead and select all of my surfaces and I'm going to convert them to meshes. And normally this slider's down here in the center, but I've moved it all the way to the end so that when Rhino's going to create a series of polygon meshes that closely follow my surfaces and solids, and the more polygons you have, the more accurately they follow your solids and surfaces. You have to be careful with this tool. If you have a very large model, these can add up quickly. So you kind of have to weigh the file size and the amount of polygons. So my ring is very small, so I can actually have a lot of polygons on it, and it's not going to increase my file size too much. So if you look at my screen, you can see that Rhino has gone ahead and created the polygon meshes. The downside is that the meshes are on the same layer that my solids and surfaces are on. So I'm actually going to right mouse on the solid layer and go to change object layer. And what that did was it put all the solids on one layer and it left the meshes on the layer that the solids were originally on. The meshes are actually what I need to create the SLC file. So the disadvantage was my solids are now all merged into one layer. But since it's a different version of my file, it's not a big deal. So to prepare this file for slicing, I'm going to take my ring and rotate it in the right view so that it's oriented horizontally for printing. And now I am ready to begin the slicing process. So I'm going to highlight all my objects and go to File, Export Selected, and I want to save this as a .slc file. And I'm going to replace the old version of this file. And it says select the base point of the slicing normal. So I usually use grid snap to help with this, and I'm going to choose a point that's below my ring, and I like to do it in front view. And then I'm going to choose a point that's above my ring. And this is an important option. Rhino's asking me, well, how far apart do you want these slices or these little layers that we're going to print your ring in? And you have to coordinate this number to a number that exists or a number that the Solidscape wax printer actually slices at, because there's only certain heights that it's capable of slicing at. So I have a little handout back here, and it tells me that we have about 2, 4, 6, 8 to choose from. So we're going to go on with one that's fairly fine. We'll do the 0.0381 millimeters. So 0.0381. Hit OK. And my file was successfully written. So it was exported, so the slices don't actually show up in my Rhino file. But if I wanted to check and see what the slices looked like, I could actually import those into Rhino. So I could go File and Import and change my file down here to .slc and open those. And let's do a fit. There we go. So I made sure that I had a layer set up for that, and if I zoom in front view, you can see These are all the slices, and so basically they're just closed profiles that represent the exterior contour of my object as my object kind of sits in space. And then the wax printer will take those profiles and fill them in with wax, and it'll fill in the negative spaces with a support material. So that is how you create an SLC file for printing on the wax printer.